No one in the theater expected anything special when a shy teenage boy from Cebu walked barefoot onto the America's Got Talent stage. His clothes were simple, his eyes were nervous, and his hands were shaking. But within seconds of opening his mouth, the entire room froze. What happened next left Simon Cowell speechless and made people whisper the same words again and again, even Elvis would be proud. Before this unbelievable story unfolds, make sure you subscribe to the channel and spread the smile by sharing this video, because moments like this remind us why dreams still matter. The lights of the America's Got Talent stage had seen thousands of performers over the years. Dancers, magicians, singers, and dreamers from every corner of the world had stood under those bright beams hoping for a miracle. But on this night, the energy felt different. There was a quiet tension in the air, the kind that comes before something unexpected. Backstage, a 16-year-old boy from Cebu, Philippines, stood alone, whispering the lyrics of a song that had followed him his entire life. His name was Mateo Cruz, and until that moment, the biggest stage he had ever sung on was a crowded street corner near the Cebu harbor. That was where tourists passed by, where jeepneys honked loudly, and where music had to fight to be heard over the noise of everyday survival. Mateo's father had once sung there too, before his voice was taken away by illness and his life was taken away by poverty. Music, for Mateo, was not a hobby. It was a memory, a promise, and a lifeline. Mateo grew up in a small wooden house with a tin roof that rattled whenever the rain came down hard. His mother worked long hours cleaning houses, and his younger sister believed her brother's voice was magic. At night, when the electricity went out, Mateo would sing in the dark, imagining a future that felt impossibly far away. His neighbors often stopped to listen, leaning out of their windows as his voice carried through the narrow streets. Many told him he sounded like someone from another time, like the singers their grandparents used to play on old radios. One day, a tourist recorded Mateo singing an Elvis Presley song and posted it online. The video didn't go viral overnight. It moved slowly, quietly, the way real stories often do. But eventually, the right people saw it. A casting producer from America's Got Talent watched the clip late one night and replayed it 3 times. There was something raw in the boy's voice, something untouched and honest. Within weeks, Mateo and his mother were on a plane for the first time in their lives, flying toward a dream neither of them dared to fully believe. Standing on the AGT stage, Mateo felt the weight of everything behind him. He thought of Cebu. He thought of his father. He thought of the nights he sang just to forget the hunger. The judges looked at him with curiosity. Simon Cowell leaned back in his chair, arms crossed, his face unreadable. He had heard it all before, or so he thought. When asked why he chose to sing an Elvis song, Mateo's voice trembled as he answered. He said Elvis made him feel brave. He said when he sang those songs, he felt like his father was listening. The audience grew quiet. This was not a polished speech. It was the truth, spoken softly by a boy who had nothing to hide. Then the music started. From the very first note, the room changed. Mateo's voice was rich, deep, and haunting, far older than his years. It wasn't an imitation. It wasn't a copy. It was as if the soul of classic rock and roll had found a new home. People in the audience leaned forward, their mouths slightly open. Some smiled. Some stared in disbelief. Within seconds, murmurs spread through the theater. Simon Cowell's eyebrows lifted. As the song continued, Mateo closed his eyes. He was no longer on a stage in America. He was back in Cebu, singing to the night sky, singing to survive. His voice cracked in the most beautiful way, filled with emotion that couldn't be taught. Halfway through the performance, a woman in the audience wiped tears from her face. By the final chorus, people were on their feet without even realizing when they stood up. The last note hung in the air, trembling, refusing to disappear. Then silence. For one long second, no one moved. And then the room exploded. The audience roared. The judges stood. Howie Mandel laughed in disbelief. Sofia Vergara clutched her chest. Heidi Klum shook her head, smiling like she had just witnessed something rare. And Simon Cowell, the man known for crushing dreams with a single sentence, did something no one expected. He smiled. Simon leaned forward, his voice calm but stunned. He said he had listened to Elvis his entire life, and what Mateo just did was not easy. He said there was something honest in that voice, something you cannot fake. Then he paused, looking directly at the boy, and said words that would change Mateo's life forever. He said, "Even Elvis would be proud of that performance." Mateo didn't understand at first. His English wasn't perfect. But when the audience cheered again and his mother cried backstage, the meaning finally reached him. His knees shook. Tears streamed down his face as he bowed his head, overwhelmed by a moment he never thought would exist. But the story didn't end there. In the next rounds, pressure began to build. Online critics questioned whether Mateo was just a novelty. Some said he was too young. Others said the comparison to Elvis was unfair. Mateo saw the comments late at night on his phone, doubts creeping into his mind. For the first time since arriving in America, he was afraid. Before his next performance, Mateo almost quit. He told his mother he didn't want to disappoint anyone. She held his hands and reminded him where he came from. She told him he didn't sing to win. He sang to tell the truth. On the night of his next performance, Mateo chose a different song, slower, more emotional. The risk was huge. If it failed, everything could fall apart. As he sang, his voice cracked again, not from weakness but from pain. The judges listened closely. This time, the applause was quieter but deeper. Simon nodded slowly, clearly moved. Week after week, Mateo grew stronger. His confidence increased, but he never lost the humility that made people fall in love with him. Fans across the United States began sharing his clips, calling him a reminder of what music used to be. People wrote messages saying his voice helped them through hard times. When Mateo finally stood on the stage for his biggest performance yet, he looked different. Still simple, still humble, but stronger. He sang not just as a boy from Cebu, but as a voice for everyone who had ever been overlooked. The final note soared, and the crowd rose once more. Win or lose, Mateo had already succeeded. Back in Cebu, neighbors gathered around small screens to watch him perform. Children sang along. Older men wiped tears, remembering their youth. Music had come full circle. Simon Cowell later said in an interview that moments like Mateo's were why the show still mattered. Not because of fame, but because of truth. Because sometimes, the world needs to be reminded that greatness can come from anywhere. And somewhere in Cebu, under a rattling tin roof, a boy's dream had finally found its voice.